Hello, welcome back to another edition of the Faithful Fan Sports Podcast. My name is Noah Casper, and I'm joined by Luke Servello today. And later on, we'll be joined by our Pittsburgh Steelers insider to discuss the Steelers draft pick. We're going to do a quick overview of what happened last night in the first round of the NFL draft. Luke, how are you doing today?
Hey, guys. How you doing?
So, Luke,
good to be back for another edition.
So, Luke, we'll obviously start with number one. Arizona picks Kyler Murray. This wasn't a surprise to anybody. Now that the pick is official, what are your thoughts?
My opinion on this has, pretty much stayed solid throughout, is that the giving up on Rosen this early to me is something that the Cardinals could and probably will regret for a while, because I think it's stupid to give up on a guy that was hurt and he was in a bad system, just a bad year last year with a bad coach who got fired after the year. I think he has good NFL tools. I think it was giving up on Rosen was too fast. I think Murray will be a decent pro, but not a stud.
Yeah, I would agree overall. But to me, at this point, Rosen being gone from Arizona was a done deal. So when you look at Murray himself, only one quarterback in the history of the NFL under 5'10" or shorter has attempted a pass, and it was Doug Flutie. Kyler Murray will become number two. I think that he's a better fit in Arizona's offense and Cliff Kingsbury's offense than Josh Rosen is or any other quarterback in this draft is. Like I've said on this show before, Cliff Kingsbury needs a home run. There are people doubting whether or not he belongs in the job that he got as an NFL head coach. Needs a home run. Either 2-3 years from now, Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury will both be out of the NFL, or both of them will be, or Cliff Kingsbury will be coaching in NFC Championship games and Kyler Murray will be playing in Pro Bowls. To me, it's one way or the other. I don't see there being a middle ground here. And Arizona knows there's no middle ground here. They know they need to hit a home run.
So I'll say this now before we move on. I've never seen a candidate less qualified for a head coaching job than Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah,
5 and 7, and you get hired as an NFL head coach. You be 5 and 7 with a college team as an NFL head coach. That's incredible.
Want to know something else about Cliff Kingsbury and his ability to evaluate quarterbacks? At Texas Tech, he had Baker Mayfield, Patrick Mahomes, and Davis Webb all on the same roster. Davis Webb started over Baker Mayfield and Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, that's crazy. Unreal.
So moving on to number two, we'll stay in the NFC West here. San Francisco went with Ohio State defensive end Nick Bosa. A lot of people viewed him as the best player in this draft. Do you think San Francisco is getting a good one here?
I do. I think they have. I think this is, to me, Noah, I think it was probably the safest pick in this whole draft. I think he has very low chance of being a bust. I think that he's a solid pro, and I think that he's someone that will be very. I just think he's a very productive, consistent guy. I just don't see him being a bust at all. I think they got a very good football player.
I do too. I mean, you remember back to the days when the 49ers were consistently making NFC Championship games and Super Bowls. Those teams were built on defense. Yes, they had some nice players on offense. Those teams were built around Patrick Willis, Navarro Bowman, Justin Smith, guys like that, Aldon Smith. Yeah. And they're starting to bring more of a defense focus back to this team. They signed Quan Alexander. They draft Nick Bosa here. I think they're going to go defense more and more as this draft continues. I think they need to get more pieces for Jimmy Garoppolo to throw to, because that's definitely important. But you're bringing Garoppolo back healthy. You're bringing Jerick McKinnon back healthy. And now you're adding guys like Bosa and Alexander on your defense. I think that this could be a sleeper playoff team next year.
Yeah, certainly, because I'm interested to see how the weapons all gel with Garoppolo healthy, obviously.
Speaking of teams that added a lot of players in free agency, the New York Jets at 3 selected Alabama defensive tackle Quinnen Williams. Quinnen Williams was the number one player on my board personally. I think he's an athletic freak, a guy of his size, being able to run as fast as he does. He's the whole package at the nose tackle position. I think the Jets hit here. The Jets in recent years, you have to give them credit. Under Mike McCagnon, he has consistently taken the best player on his board despite it not being a need.
Yeah, listen, no, I'll tell you this. On paper, the Jets had a really good offseason. On paper. Now, if you want to tell me, I think I said this on the last podcast, I'll say it again. If you want to tell me that won't translate to the real games, fine. That's a fair point, honestly. But on paper, I mean, they've added legit pieces. You can't argue that.
No, you can't. I mean, you look at them adding – Darnold has another year of experience. He has Adam Gase as his head coach who coached Brock Osweiler and Peyton Manning and Ryan Tannehill to their best years as quarterbacks in the NFL. You sign Le'Veon Bell. You give Darnold the nice security blanket and Jamison Crowder. And then on top of that, you go look what they've done on defense, bringing in Quinnen Williams and C.J. Mosley and guys like that. I think they're in really good shape.
Me too. In theory, the Jets have a tendency. If the Jets have a tendency, I still don't think they'll make the playoffs.
So
they have a tendency to just mess stuff up. Go ahead.
So the biggest shock early in the draft was at 4 overall, the Oakland Raiders selected Clemson defensive end Clelin Ferrell in a questionable move with guys like Josh Allen and Ed Oliver and Devin White still on the board. When asked about it, general manager Mike Mayock said that the Raiders were looking for foundational football players, high character guys with low floors and high ceilings. Luke, do you want to go first on this one?
Yes, no, and it's very silly. Very silly. They just traded for Antonio Brown, who's very low character, a couple months ago.
Less than that.
Stupid to be doing that.
I mean,
to be saying that they low character. Noah. He had a late first-round grade, and you took him with the number 4 pick. They overthought that pick. Should have taken. No, they should. There's a lot of guys they should have taken before him. Like literally 10.
So
very silly pick.
There are 2 main things that stand out to me here. First and foremost, what I'll say is this. If you are a talent evaluator, you fall in love with the guy, and you genuinely believe – if Mike Mayock genuinely believes that Clelin Ferrell is the best football player he can get at 4, that's fine. He knows a lot more – he's forgot a lot of football that you and I will never even know. So if he believes that, that's fine. But if you have 2 other first-round picks, you don't think that they could have paired – you don't think they could have gotten a Josh Allen, a Devin White at 4, and then paired 24 and 27 to move up into like the late teens to get Ferrell there? You pay him less, and you still get the guy you want. That's point number 1. Point number 2, you brought it up in the character thing. 3-4 weeks ago you didn't care about character, bringing in Antonio Brown. Why do you now? There's no consistency here. This to me shows that they're making things up as they go, which is never a good sign for an NFL front office. You need to have a plan. You need to have a consistency. The New England Patriots and the Los Angeles Rams need to have a plan and consistency, and they're winning football games. They have established NFL players that are paying big contracts. The Oakland Raiders are trying to get to that point. They're trying to build the team to do that. If you're building a team, you need a plan. You can't make things up as you go. It doesn't work like that.
No, it really doesn't. Really doesn't. People are asking what are they doing? I don't even know if they're 100% know what they're doing. I think they're just trying to chuck stuff together. It's not working.
And none of what I'm saying is to take away anything from Clelin Ferrell or Josh Jacobs, or Jonathan Abrams. I think those are all good football players. I think they'll all be contributors in the NFL for a long time. What I'm saying is you need to have a plan. You can't have this is the kind of player we want one day and then change that the next. You need consistency and you need a plan, and it doesn't look like they have that in Oakland. Moving on to number 5, Tampa Bay took uber athletic LSU linebacker Devin White to replace another former LSU linebacker who left for San Francisco in free agency in Quan Alexander. Luke, what do you think of Tampa Bay picking up Devin White, the Louisiana native?
I think Devin White is, to me, he's the best guy, one of the better guys to build a defense around in this draft.
Oh, me too. I love Devin White.
I think he's an anchor. I think he's going to bring stability. I'd say a very good athlete. Good at I think he did good at the combine. I
had a nice combine. Speaking of linebackers in Tampa Bay, you know who's so underrated and so consistent? Levante David.
Yeah, he's good.
That's a good person for Devin White to learn from in Tampa Bay.
I 100% believe that they got a good pick, and they got a guy that can anchor their defense for a while to come.
Absolutely.
I think arguably he was the best guy to draft in this draft to build your defense around.
Yeah, for sure. He's a signal caller on defense. Speaking of signal callers, at number 6, the New York Giants surprised a lot of people going with Duke quarterback Daniel Jones ahead of Ohio State quarterback Dwayne Haskins. We could go a lot of different directions here. I'll go first on this one. I think this is similar to what I said about the Oakland Raiders 2 picks ago. I like Daniel Jones. I'm higher on him than a lot of people are. I think he's going to be a good NFL quarterback. He can run. He's 6'5", 220, makes throws. But that's a guy that you can get at 17. I mean, after Daniel Jones, we didn't see another quarterback off the board until 15. There was no movement up to get quarterbacks. You saw Denver move down. They didn't take a quarterback. Cincinnati passed on a quarterback. Miami passed on a quarterback. The Giants could have had Daniel Jones at 17 when they had Josh Allen fall into their laps at 6. They moved on from Olivier Vernon. Jason Pierre-Paul is gone now. He's been gone for a couple years. They need a pass rusher, and they completely ignored that to go with a quarterback who they could have had at 17.
Yeah, I mean, with the Jones pick, I just listen. I agree with you. Like, if you want to tell me that you think he'll be a good quarterback, yes, I will accept that. I disagree with you personally, but regardless of your opinion on the player, you have to acknowledge that it just wasn't. It didn't have the value of a number 6 pick. It just didn't. Because if they don't take him there, he wouldn't have gone for a while.
I think he still would have gone in the first round. I think people suggesting that he wouldn't have been a first-round pick are being ridiculous. That's just...
No, I agree he would have been a first-round pick, but it's not like the number 8 or 9 team or 7 team was just right there ready to swoop him, and that the Giants just
would have missed out.
Him. Yeah, they wouldn't. They literally probably most likely would have got him with their next pick if they wanted. So why not draft someone you can build? Why not take like a
Josh Allen?
Josh Allen. That's
there.
who I was predicting that pick to be when I was watching it live.
Ed Oliver was still there. Devin Bush was still there. There were top 10 defensive prospects still there, ready for them to take, and they didn't.
Yeah, I agree. Just hard to believe. Well, easy to believe because they're just so dysfunctional.
Jaguars at 7. We both brought up Josh Allen. I'll let you go first on Josh Allen.
I think Josh Allen is a great story. He's a kid that was counted out his whole life, and he's just kind of kept proving people wrong. I think he's a good football player. He's smart. He was a part of that build at Kentucky. He built that program from nothing, almost literally. Yeah. And he's a winner, and he's a tough kid. I think he's a good NFL player. Maybe not. I think he's a guy I'd want on my team for sure.
He was projected as high as 3 to the Jets, and he fell to the Jaguars at 7. This was not a positional need for the Jaguars. They just took the highest-rated guy on their board at 7, which you can't blame them for.
There's no excuse for the Jaguars not to compete next year. Their defense is legit.
It has been. Last year, their
outside rushers. Their outside rushing ability is unbelievable, though. The amount of talent they have in that roster, in particular, Daniel, the quarterback, is arguably the best in the league.
Their problem last year on defense had nothing to do with the talent on that defense. It had to do with the fact that defense felt like they needed to be heroes. They needed to do more than their 50%, that they needed to save the offense. They needed to force turnovers. They needed to score defensive touchdowns, pick passes off, force fumbles. Now that you have Nick Foles, that's not as much of a pressure anymore. They can go back to being the defense they were when they went to the AFC Championship game a couple years ago, plus Josh Allen.
Yeah.
That's a good football team.
I think he definitely adds to an already – the rich get richer on defense there.
Speaking of the next pod, the rich don't get richer, but the Detroit Lions do get a little richer, adding Iowa tight end TJ Hawkinson. This was one of the few picks that I projected correctly. I mean, Matt Patricia comes from the New England lineage, so of course the tight ends are always going to be a focal point in his offense. Hawkinson sort of had a breakout year last year, took a big jump up boards. I think it's good to give Matt Stafford another weapon. In the Lions' best days and Stafford's best days, he had Brandon Pettigrew. If Hawkinson can be – I think Hawkinson's a much better player than Brandon Pettigrew ever was. I think you have Galladay and Marvin Jones on the outside still. You have Kerryon Johnson going into his second year now. You added C.J. Anderson in the backfield as well as Johnson, and you still have Theo Riddick. I think the Lions are a pretty good football team right now.
Noah, let me ask you this. How many more programs really have the amount of gritty guys that Iowa produces? All grit.
Not many.
I think that's something people can tend to overlook. Like, don't you want a guy that practiced and played hard?
Yeah.
Sounds simple to say, but no, you don't think – like, you think – imagine, like, an Iowa football practice. Those guys are probably get after it. So he'll adjust well to the NFL. No, full disclosure. Is he a junior or senior? I don't know.
I believe he was a redshirt sophomore, but I'm not entirely sure off the top of my head.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know that one either. All right.
Buffalo at 9.
Yeah, Buffalo.
Ed Oliver. The Bills were rumored to be interested in Oliver. They didn't think they would get him at 9. They felt like they needed to move up the board to get him. No deal came to fruition for them to move up, and Oliver still falls into their laps anyways. I mean, Kyle Williams is retiring after being there for a long time. They tried to draft guys who could get after the quarterback in the past, and they missed on Shaq Lawson. I think Oliver's a good football player. It takes a lot to get a guy to be excited about being a Buffalo Bill, but he seems genuinely excited to be there. So I would say good pick for Buffalo.
Yeah, me too. I like that pick. I think that Oliver has high bust. I think how productive his NFL career has a very wide range, because I think he's had struggles keeping his motor up and his attentiveness. No, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think he's a guy that can tend to fade out of playing hard.
Well, I mean, that happens when you're playing your conference games against Tulsa and Tulane.
I think that it also, that is fair. So I think it could go either way.
Moving on to the 10th pick, we now welcome our Steelers writer to discuss the Steelers picking 10th overall, Devin Bush. So what are your thoughts?
Honestly, man, I think Devin Bush was a great acquisition in the draft this year. He, very, very athletic. I feel as though he might be very underrated.
Yeah.
Only due to the fact because he's 5'5", 225. He's a short little explosion is what I like to refer to him as.
Yeah.
And he, I think Byron Murphy might have been the better choice coming into it because, it's been a big thing this year saying that Pittsburgh has lacked at the linebacker position. And that's only because we lost Shazier.
Yeah.
And, when you look at Pittsburgh, we tied for first place sack. So, we only had 8 interceptions. So, what's that really say about the secondary instead of, having a core middle linebacker position? Excuse me.
So you mentioned the secondary. Go ahead, Luke.
I agree. I think he definitely brings athleticism. He's very explosive, and I think that I agree with Chance. He was one of the more slept-on players in the draft just from common fans. I think football people know who he is, but I think that the commoners, if you know what I mean by commoners, don't understand his ability as much as they should.
Exactly. I feel it's more they see his attitude coming onto the field.
He's got a chip on his shoulder.
Middle of the field, kicking the dirt up. Everybody sees that. I had a few of my close friends. They said to me, hey, why do you like him so much? He has got a bad attitude. He is, I feel as though he's kind of a nut. And I'm saying, no, man, he's very slept on. He recorded 172 tackles in his 3 years at Michigan.
Yeah. I think
while only 10 of the. Go ahead.
I personally, to go off what you were saying, I think there's a difference between a guy having bad character and having a chip on his shoulder and being a little edgy, which frankly you want your defense to be edgy. The Steelers are known for having those kind of defensive players who aren't afraid to hit you. They're chippy, but that's the kind of guy who works there. I think Devin Bush is a good fit. I think he'll respond well to Mike Tomlin. And as you mentioned with the secondary, you can get secondary guys later in the draft. There are three of the top 4 corners on the board still available going into round 2. So if they want to facilitate another trade in that category, they can. If not, one might fall to them anyways. I think Bush is a good pick. I think he brings stability to that defense and leadership.
Yes, I completely agree with you. Like you said, you can get, there's the top 3 corners still on the board right now. Well, defensive backs.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to call it. That, in Greedy Williams, Byron Murphy, and I personally think, considering Pittsburgh is only sitting on, 2 third-round draft picks, granted, 3 is being the most right now. I think it's held by I can't remember right now who holds it. I believe it's the Jets who hold the 3 picks in the third round.
Sounds right.
It's the most picks.
Sounds right. I think so.
So, we hold the 66th pick and the 83rd pick. So, Greedy Williams. If Greedy Williams lasts the pick 66, then I feel like he would be an absolutely great acquisition for us because he would be learning under Joe Hayden.
Yeah.
And, Joe Hayden's one of the best who does it. He's very, very smart cornerback. He, be a great mentor for him. Let's put it that way.
I think it's possible. I think at the early portion of the second round, you're going to see a run on offensive linemen and receivers. Jawan Taylor, Cody Ford, Dalton Reisner, Eric McCoy, all offensive linemen with first-round grades still on the board. Then there's going to be a run of receivers, both kids from Ole Miss and Metcalf and Brown, Paris Campbell, Debo Samuel. I think you're going to see a lot of those guys come off the board. So guys in positions like defensive back and defensive line, they could fall to that portion of the draft right into Pittsburgh's lap.
Yes, exactly. That we got to think though. Also, before that comes, Drew Lock's still on the board.
Yes, he is.
He's not somebody who Pittsburgh is going to acquire, but Drew, I feel as though Drew Lock could possibly be the first one to go in the second round tonight. Who picks first? Is it
Arizona holds it, but they could move it.
Okay, well, see, that'd be. The thing is, though, with that is while Larry Fitzgerald is still in Arizona, who knows how much longer he lasts? He said this is his last year, I believe.
I believe he did too.
Arizona needs to hold on to that pick.
They need
Arizona
weapons.
Needs to hold on to that pick. Exactly. And DK Metcalf or AJ Brown would be absolutely incredible to come match with Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
I'll say this to you. No matter it's all been talked about taking Kyler, not taking Kyler, keeping Rose and trading. So they end up going with Kyler. No matter which one of the two they have one of the worst arsenal of weapons I think in the league.
I like Christian
Kirk. Who's even on
Kirk.
that team to throw to?
I like Christian Kirk. But that's it.
That's one role player.
And you still have David Johnson there.
Yeah.
But receivers, they definitely need receivers and tight ends.
Yeah. Larry's got one more year left. And, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
A lot of good tight ends are falling down the board, too. Arizona could quite possibly take a tight end place tonight.
Yeah. Irv Smith could go at 33 from Alabama.
Exactly. And like you said, too, for Pittsburgh, personally, outside of Arizona, obviously, I think Jawan Taylor might be a great fit for us if he stays. But he's another one that, you question how long he'll be there tonight.
Yeah. Indianapolis has done such a good job. I think Chris Ballard one of the better up-and-coming front office people in the NFL. The Colts have 3 picks in the second round. They can control a lot of things. If they want to move out of 34 for somebody coming up to get Drew Lock, they can. If they want to get a weapon for themselves there and then move around, they have a lot of options, and Indianapolis controls the tone of what happens tonight.
Listen. I'll tell you this. The guy that the Colts should be targeting is that's not in this draft, but is probably in the trade market I saw today, is Chris Harris.
Oh, could you imagine?
They need another guy in that secondary. I think they're one guy short in that secondary.
Is Mike Mitchell still with them?
I'm not sure off the top of my head, to be honest with you.
I believe if Mike Mitchell's still with them, he came out of Pittsburgh. He was very, very versatile in that secondary position. So if you match him with a Chris Harris, you take two not so higher level players and match them together, and you put both of their drives together, and you will create an absolute monster of a secondary.
Yeah. So now
I agree.
We've covered the top 10 picks. Before we wrap it up, do either of you guys have any thoughts of anything that happened below 10 that you want to cover on quickly?
Go ahead, Chance.
I'll be honest with you, man. I think Devin White was a great acquisition for Tampa Bay. He's very, again, another one of those players that's very, very explosive. He is, I believe, I cannot remember off the top of my head how many sacks he recorded at LSU, but I believe it was one of the higher coming out of the draft and one of the higher tackles coming out of the draft. Total tackles coming out of the draft. And, Tampa Bay is going to have, if they can get together some more picks and, maybe trade, move some people around, I think they could be one of the best defenses coming into the season this year.
Yeah.
The one thing, I'll tell you one pick that I really liked outside the 10 is I thought the Atlanta Falcons got the best guard in the draft, and that's Boston College's Chris Lindstrom. I thought they got the best guard in the draft. You're going to laugh at me and say, oh, it's only an offensive lineman. That's a football player. That's a 4-year starter. And Noah, a school like BC has faced animals. Chris Lindstrom has faced big-time football players in his career, unlike Clemson, NC State. He's faced legit defensive lines. So I think that was probably one of the bigger steals of the first round. That's Boston College's Chris Lindstrom.
A pick that stood out
Especially
to me. Go ahead.
You mentioned – oops, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to change the subject. Finish this one up.
Oh, I was just going to say, you mentioned Clemson. I believe it's Christopher Wilkins. Can't remember his first name, but Wilkins. Lindstrom went up against him and fared very well. So that could, like you said, he could have been one of the best guards to come out of there.
Yeah, he's the best guard in the draft. Hell of a football player. Tough, gritty football IQ. Great kid. They got a good one. He's protecting another former Eagle, Matt Ryan.
All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the Faithful Fan Sports Podcast Draft Recap from Day 1. Thank you for listening, and we hope you continue to listen in the future. Thanks.